Okay, hi everybody. So I'm doing a video today to go through the notes and some of the evidence that I have from the first investigation, the first retaliatory investigation launched against me by St. Paul University. There's a lawyer that they hired, the second investigator that they hired. The first one removed themselves. And the second one is called Steve Gone, and he has an associate called Kelly and who has never been properly identified and whose conflicts of interest have never been disclosed or, we don't know who that person is. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Share. Okay, now let's go into, might as well start here. So this is Steve Gone, okay, from adrottawa.com. Okay, so alternative dispute resolution. So led by let's go if we start. Okay, so a lawyer, mediator, arbitrator. With extensive background as a lawyer, chartered mediator, Stephen Goen founded this company in 2003. He has mediated, arbitrated, and investigated thousands of legal and other cases since that time, which is amazing that he has so much experience with that. And there's, so much evidence of incompetence in this investigation. So Mr. Goen is a leader in the legal community. Okay, Board of Trustees of the County of Carleton Law Association in multiple years, and also CCLA president, and also adjunct professor at U of O, okay, or Ottawa U in the Faculty of Common Law. So I just wanted to let you know that we'll be coming back to this. Okay, so let's get into here. If I could move that, would be great. Move that. All right, let's make this bigger. All right. So here's the notes. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to display this, but then I'm only going to really discuss my markups, okay, and my comments. So we started with a statement. Um, they're trying to devalue me as a researcher instead of just devaluing my research. They're trying to devalue me and my research because I am known and because I'm successful. And fair process in supporting the use through truth telling, not in truth telling. Okay, so I went through a timeline which I've shown people before. You can go to video 2. I called it video 2 from the next retaliatory investigation, which is fraudulent and fabricated allegations of academic fraud. So the red, so my markups are going to be in blue. I changed the font. Usually markups are in red in Microsoft Word, but I changed it to blue so that you can discriminate between my markups and the red comments made by the either Mr. Goner or Kelly. So additional comments she made during her recitation appear in red font. So what they're saying is that the red here is additional to like what I had documented on what I sent them in an official documentation, and I showed this to you in, like I said, video 2. So these partnerships included direct involvement with presidents at SSHRC, who has, coincidentally, some new fake funding out for some new fake research to make fake heroes in Indigenous research. Might want to check that out. And also, I added that partnership was directly with the president of SSHRC, who is Ted Hewitt. So then, which is the same thing as always from the beginning I've been talking about since the core of my research. Yes. So the core of my research was erased. Dr. Wilson, with Dr. Wilson. So I've been discussing this the whole time and so I've been discussing when I started in 2023, my first course, it was with Dr. Wilson. And I was talking about philosophy, why it's so important, how it's being devalued, and why that's a problem for the Anishinaabe since the beginning. And they waited until the very last course of coursework, the very last semester of coursework, to present their problems with the core of my research, which is not okay. And there hasn't been any support for me as a student in this entire 2 years. And all the support goes to the other student, and we'll talk about that a bit later. There are many other problematic things that I could tell you about Dr. Lacassan. That was stated differently, and I corrected it. So that she could, so that Orly could avoid being the dean of the faculty instead of so that she would not be. So I specifically am talking about a conspiracy to avoid being the dean of the faculty while this violence and racism and genocide is being administered onto me. So I corrected that. So this belongs later. A lot of the times, whoever made these notes are putting things in the wrong place. So I took it out of here and it's down here. So I have since sent Simon Tremblay Pepin several more complaints of racism in writing. They pile up. There has to be at least five or six. I haven't actually counted them. So literally erase the core of my research. This complaint is dated February 21st. My position is that the complaints are improper on many bases. Okay, so we get into that a little later as well. So on Saturday, after documenting their complaint, Dr. Wilson sent an email to all students. Yeah, and then where we also met in Dr. Wilson's class in the fall of 2023. Dr. Wilson was my professor at the beginning of my coursework and at the end of my coursework in 2025. That was not included in these notes, and it's important. So here, see this two? That's where this comes from. I put a two there, and this is what it states. In response to a question, Ms. Hickey clarified that her first meeting with Simon Tremblay Pepe was a result of complaints about her posts on social media. Those posts began in the winter when she started receiving lower marks in Dr. Mackey's class. Ms. Hickey clarified that the reason she did not make a written complaint and instead posted her complaints online is because faculty pretend that they don't know what is on her social media, which is a strategy to erase her advocacy and her identity as a genocide survivor. Ms. Hickey stated that Dr. Mackey pretended not to know who she was on the first day of class. Ms. Hickey stated that she documented her experience with racism in academia online in 2022. I stated that many times. That's when I started documenting publicly racism against me in academia, starting with Shirk, Mr. Ted Hewitt, the other Tri-Council agencies, and this fake Indigenous leadership circle and research. Ms. Hickey stated that the faculty pretended they do not know about these events. Dr. Lacassan was a friend on Ms. Hickey's Facebook until 2025. Ms. Hickey stated that she explained to Simon Tremblay Pepin what she considers racism in Dr. Mackey's class. She gave him some evidence that she had, and she explained that the reason she does this is because she has a duty and an obligation to Indigenous youth. She added that the problem that Indigenous people have is that many of the people in Indigenous leadership right now have been in leadership for 30 or 40 years, and the genocide is worse than ever. Our problem is that someone has to do something, and someone has to do something different. That's where I come in. Hero, champion on the bat channels. um, She added that this is not who she is as an individual, and this is not the work that she wants to do. She added that this is a strategy in a war, a genocidal war against First Nations and other Indigenous people. Okay, those are important points. So okay, so I take care of myself and I'm very healthy and well, and I've never taken any days off sick in over a decade. That's spelled wrong, except for one COVID infection. You know, out here, kids, they take all their sick days and they take all of their mental health days and whatever it is. This is normal. So it's normal for people to call in sick even when they're not sick and use up all their days. It's use them or lose them. This is how society has evolved out here. Dr. Barrett was introduced as an observer on the day where everything went boom, and there was no other information provided. His name wasn't provided, his role wasn't provided, nothing like that. So in my view, I was expected to change my feedback. What Dr. Barrett and Dr. Wilson were trying to do in that class was intimidate me and coerce me to change my feedback so that it complies with their rewrites, which they would have continued. They would have continued to alter my research with their feedback and using students, the feedback of students. They would have continued to use these tactics to alter my research until it's completely no longer what it used to be, and it's something stupid, and I have to go into the community and do fake research, which is something they've done. They've repeated that program on Indigenous grad students over and over again, and it's documented in the literature. They decide to accept the dehuman. So some PhDs do decide to accept the dehumanization and proceed with fake research. Hopefully, at some point in their career, they can actually do something real. I've said this before. Unfortunately, this is the status quo. Okay, so this part was not included. I had to add it. So I am going to be 48 years old on Tuesday. Okay, I'm almost 50. Okay, so they erased my entire career of research, even though much of it is very high level. Based on that experience, I have seen this retaliation where Indigenous students complain of racism and these retaliatory processes are brought against them. And I've seen it many times over in my capacity in student services, also in student government. I also have personal and lived experience in which my mother also worked countless hours on top of her academics fighting against racism at UBC when I was a teenager, and that was 30 years ago. No matter what we do, they keep the status quo rolling, even though Indigenous students know the methods and they are aware that it is common that they will be expected to accept dehumanization and to comply with coercion, all of which is well documented in the literature. My accusers are pretending this evidence doesn't exist. They pretend that all of this advocacy and all of the work that has been done all of these years doesn't even exist. It is very offensive, it is erasure, and it is genocide. So I sent an email at 10:12 a.m. and I have that documentation. So see that I sent an email at 10:12 and then I received notification of this complaint at 10:17 a.m. on February 24th. And these are important details. And I had stated that and I said I have the documentation. So Dr. Wilson knows that this complaint was documented on the Friday before the event, and I was not notified until 10:17 a.m., and I have all of that documented. February 21st was the last day of reading week. It was 1 week and 4 days after my meeting with Amanda Wilson on February 10th that they decided to document this poor and improper complaint. So down here to Dr. Eaton, I had a class with Dr. Eaton and I had no problem and received an A. Before Dr. Eaton proceeded with her improper complaints, she did not ask me for my point of view or care to know anything about my perspective. Instead, she just jumped on the bandwagon and there's a huge pile on. How many people are involved now? At least 10 or 12. So Madame Audette tried to lock me into their official complaint entrapment scheme, where they also end up like accusing you of retaliation because you filed a complaint, an official complaint, like all kinds of stuff they try. And they think we don't know that stuff. So it's my position based on my extensive experience that I just mentioned before that you can find on my CV that my complaints of racism were dismissed without any academic reasoning or logic, and that everyone insisted that I file a formal complaint if I want those complaints addressed. So that's not acceptable, and that's contrary to their own policies. Okay. So when a student complains of racism, it is not appropriate to dismiss, deny, dismiss, and tell the person that they need to go away, and the only recourse they have is an official complaint. That's not the way that you deal with complaints of racism from First Nation students. Sorry to inform you. The reason for which I do not have a lot of confidence in this process whatsoever, which isn't personal, but it is the truth, is because I don't make formal complaints. I don't file police reports. All that stuff is fake. That's the reason why I didn't call the police in the 90s during my MMIWG event, because all of that is fake. And especially in the 90s, I mean, things have improved somewhat, but definitely in the 90s, there would have been victim blaming and there would have been retaliation against the victim. Sometimes we don't survive that retaliation. Also, I mean, I almost died twice. What happened is that I was confined, I was drugged, I was raped and tortured for days. Okay, I escaped. That's how I got out of there. I escaped my confinement. So then when I finally got back to my apartment, I had to go through a detox of all the drugs they had me on, including opiates. And that detox lasted more than 24 hours. And that was the sickest I have ever been in my entire life. I thought I was going to die at certain points of that detox. And there was no way I was going to call an ambulance. There's no way I'm going to go to a hospital. And that's absolutely not going to happen. I remember thinking to myself, if I die, I'll just come back and smash them all. That's what I thought. But I survived that detox. I almost died twice in my MMIWG event. This is what I'm saying. So it is well known that experiences like this are well documented in the literature, these experiences of racism and then retaliatory complaints and on and on and on. So there was a first investigator who I'm still not naming for the time being. Okay, I have evidence that that person was supposed to be an external investigator, and I have receipts for that. And I have evidence that suggests that that person is not external. So there's all kinds of improper process and procedure and total conflicts of interest all over the place in all of these fiascos, both of these fiascos. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So, like up here, see, she's talking about how I said things are very successful and well read. That actually didn't happen till down here. So, like, I assume that Kelly wrote that by saying she. I don't know who created these notes actually, but you see what I'm saying is that things are being placed in the improper places. So the first investigator who I met with concluded the meeting by asking, "So you will not stop posting?" Okay. So, like, I mean, they don't expect these investigations to go this far because people are usually intimidated by by fear of like what will happen to them if they were to continue to fight back, right? And so then, like, I know what'll happen. I won't get a fake job, and I might not get a fake degree that you have to join a cult to get these things. I might not get those things because I don't join the cult and because I fought back on all of this. And I could care less about not having those things. I don't want those things. So that's what's different about me, and that's what's different about this. So their goal is to silence me. And a lot of them give into it, unfortunately. And I also added the students who survive the dehumanization give into it or they drop out. Some don't survive the dehumanization that they experience after everything they went through to get to this point, and that's why it's a genocide. Okay, so here we go. So I added all this, which was not properly reflected. It is somewhat reflected later, but not correctly and not accurately in my view. So Mr. Gone asked Miss Hickey if it is her right to make these points, if I think it's my right. Ms. Hickey clarified that from an Anishinaabe perspective, she has a duty and an obligation to help Indigenous youth to understand before they get to university that this racism is still going on. The same as 30 years ago with my mother at UBC. It is so offensive. Ms. Hickey added that her freedom of expression is protected by Canadian law. They did include it a little later. Mr. Gone asked to run through the chronology. So Mr. Gone stated that as far as the university is concerned, the issues with professors started with Dr. Mackey in the fall of 2024. Ms. Hickey clarified that she started her online complaints of racism that she experienced in academia, which I will continue to write and document for the rest of my write about and document for the rest of my life. In 2022, where am I here? I lost my place. Before I started classes, which was fall of 2023. So Ms. Hickey clarified that when she got to classes, she realized she was going to be erased and she began documenting everything then. Mr. Gone asked for clarification about one of Ms. Hickey's submissions that he couldn't find. So they're talking about posts, like online posts, social media. So he couldn't find it, and he stated Kelly knows where it is, and and it asserts that the problem started 2 years ago. Apparently, that's what they're saying. Like your posts assert that the problem started 2 years ago. So I clarified that I came out publicly as an MMIWG survivor, and I started documenting my experiences with racism in academia and professional settings in 2022. That stuff with the fake Indigenous leadership circle and research and the tri-council agencies and CFI, that was in the fall of 2022 that I did that expose. So Miss Hickey restated that she survived an attempt to murder her because I'm a First Nations woman in the late 90s. They told me I was going to die because I'm an Indian. Okay. And they put up the program includes that and a whole whack of other misogyny. She added that she grew up with survivors of the Alberni residential school who were erased. Ms. Hickey added that the Ayers survivors were erased by their own communities and they were erased by Canada. Ms. Hickey said that she witnessed the trauma these survivors incurred as a result, and she has been on a mission for erased genocide survivors ever since, although not publicly until 2022. Mr. Gone asked Ms. Hickey to clarify when she started at SPU USP, and I stated the fall of 2023. So those are just technicalities. Mr. Gone asked if Ms. Hickey made any assertions or documented anything that she determined to be racism or genocide. Ms. Hickey clarified that the staff and faculty were erasing her and pretending that they don't know about her online efforts, personal research, and advocacy. Ms. Hickey clarified further that when people like her have online influence, people like her accusers use a well-known strategy of pretending as if they have no awareness of it. It's erasure. She added that they also pretend as if they don't know about the existence or success of my master's research, which Orly Lacassan was on the committee, which is highly successful and well read. Dr. Hickey, or sorry, D. Hickey, added that the pretendians, the fake Métis, and the Ottawa establishment and academic establishment in Ottawa and nationally want to devalue her, and they want to create a false perception that her work is not real or that she does not deserve the influence that she has. Ms. Hickey clarified she noticed the erasure immediately upon beginning classes in 2023. So like over here, I have a comment. I was referring to Indigenous leadership who are ineffective at addressing the genocide that only gets worse. So this is talking about SPU leadership, and that's not what I said, not at all. So these are things that need to be clarified. So there, what I said above is somewhat stated here, although ineffectively, and and some things are left out. It's not precise enough, and that's why I redid it. You can have a look at that yourself. In response to a question by Mr. Gone, see, like the way that they the way that they write this makes it seem as if I'm just like blasting off a whole bunch of stuff when I'm actually responding to questions, okay? So Mr. Gone asked for clarification about whether Ms. Hickey complained about the erasure that she noticed when she began classes, and Ms. Hickey clarified that she did not submit any complaints until Dr. Wilson, like in writing, until Dr. Wilson erased her research. Ms. Hickey stated that she does not typically file complaints or police reports because these processes are fake and they often result in retaliation against victims. I just went over that. And in regard to, I'm an expert in fake investigations and fake authorities and fake processes. Intimidation by authorities, intimidation by lawyers, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, Ms. Hickey stated that she's had several fake jobs, and that it is her experience that human resources and benefit administrators, by the way, kids, if you don't know, so it's not just your HR person, they're in cahoots with benefits administrators, by the way. And they're implicated in violence against staff, such as retaliatory administrative processes, and that investigations conducted in those employment environments are also fake. Ms. Hickey stated that this is why she doesn't file complaints and why most of her advocacy against these issues is internet-based. Someone has to do something and somebody has to do something differently, okay? Like this is my explanation. They don't want to accept it. They want to erase it as if it doesn't matter. It matters. So Ms. Hickey added that she is aware that non-Indigenous people also use retaliatory processes against each other. And Dr. Lacassan made statements to her that suggest that Dr. Morissette is a target for retaliatory administrative violence. And I have that documented as well. Ms. Hickey added that she does not, that just because they do this to each other all the day long and that's what they're really experts in, doesn't make racism okay. So some of this stuff is there, but not in a way that's accurate, which is why I replaced that with or I added a more accurate description. Here, it is my view that these issues are present everywhere. So I stated that in professional settings, like these procedures are fake. So the way that they have it stated here is like it's just an SPU that this stuff is fake, and it's like no, and it's not how I said it at all. It is my view that these fake investigations and these fake violent, retaliatory processes, this goes on everywhere. Canada is fake. It's a fake. Everything is that there's all fakery all over the place. So well known. Almost everybody's been through this. It is my view that these issues are present everywhere, government, academia, healthcare settings. Like there isn't even privacy in healthcare settings, chums. If you think that Health Sciences North is protecting your privacy, that ain't the truth. And my mom ought to know that. Industry everywhere in Canada, etc. So then to be her first social media post, Dr. Mackey, who gave me a 78 grade, this is where so Dr. Mackey gave me a B plus, which is a 78. And they're trying to like corner me into this like 85 is an A and this whole confusion over that. So I had to deal with that. So anyway, the investigator informed me that an 85 is actually an A. It's probably a low A. So then I said, well, I don't know. Mr. Gone clarified that Ms. Hickey had previously spoken of 85 as below a A. So Ms. Hickey stated, I could be wrong. You are right. Ms. Hickey clarified that she does not agree with the 85 grade and that she disputes the grade. So I did, and I did so in writing. So every grade that Simone Tremblay Pimpin gave me at 85, which is all of them, I disputed every single one in writing. I don't agree with 85%, and that's the case. So whether or not it is an A is irrelevant. They're devaluing me and they conspired, in my view, to grade everything I do at 85%. So I stated that perhaps what I thought 85, yeah. So that's just more in the confusion. And that, okay, so here's some other stuff that they do. So, like so they have all these strategies to devalue your work. So like in Dr. Mackey's class, she insisted that everything be super formal, like APA edition 7 citations on everything, including like weekly reading reflections. So that any mistakes that you make there, that's where Dr. Mackey is going to have an excuse to devalue your work and lower your grade down to like below people who just got to the country. And like I've been studying social sciences my entire life. Okay. And how can people that are still learning English possibly get higher grades than me? So these are the questions that I have to ask. And nobody has ever answered these questions without anything other than gaslighting. So that'll like except for like I'm an expert, like I'm not an expert but I'm an experienced student, and like except for final assignments and formal assignments, for like the formalization of citations, like and all these expectations around APA 7 and all that kind of stuff, those are preferences, those are professor preferences, okay? And they're not like adequate to devalue somebody, so that you can pretend that like my work is fake and less, and not as good as it is, that it's some kind of joke. That's not okay. That's racism. So then, Mackie created a structure where, to create any excuse. So there's another thing that they do, whereas they limit the amount of pages that you can submit for an assignment, but they grade it based on all of the criteria that all of your research, like an entire research proposal would have to have included. And like your very final, like entire thing, all of those criteria are used to mark something where the pages are limited, sometimes to one page. Like, I mean, these are ridiculous strategies, and and it's based on a structure of discrimination, and also, in my view, they're using diversity, inclusion, and equity framework to discriminate against students, and that's happening all across academia, all over the place. And they're also teaching, all of this is demonstrating to international students how to genocide First Nations by erasure. So I stated that students at St. Paul University, we can't view the marks of other students for the purposes of comparing to see whether or not there's any discrimination going on. I don't know what any other students scored in comparison to me. And I don't have access to their work or anything like that. There's no way for me to evaluate whether or not there's been any discrimination. That's not okay. That's not ethical. Also, so SBU has been hiding this information from students. I also stated that no one in the social innovation department can produce a grading methodology. Everyone that I asked for a grading methodology has been unable to produce it. So they've disposed of, like in 2015 when Trudeau got here, and they all were informed about what they would have to do to keep their fake jobs, which is dispose of their ethics. They also had to dispose of their grading methodologies in order to pass these students who can't even speak English or French or whatever. So it's my position that a DEI framework has been used to discriminate against me, and yeah, how is it possible? So okay, so this is an important part. So then, so I was asked about a January 3rd post where I contended that a DEI framework had impacted my grade and whether or not I believe that Dr. Mackey's gender identification caused them to assign me a lower grade. I stated the following. I think it's important that we should put exactly what I said. Well, I mean, I'm not saying that it's because of their gender identity. What I'm saying is that it furthers their agenda of accessing funding and excluding others, right? So discrimination in access to funding, which is discrimination. And it is well known that the diversity, equity, and inclusion framework is considered discriminatory by people who they sort into being on the right, okay, of the in terms of political ideology. This is another reason for discrimination. So this is another basis upon which SPU is discriminating against me. This wasn't included. So it's not just discrimination based on race, which is a prohibited basis for discrimination in Canada, but also discrimination based on political ideology, okay? Another prohibited grounds for discrimination in Canada. They have me sorted on the right, which isn't even true, but that is what's happening here. And in my view, these kinds of policies are way far left, and the universities have gone way out of bounds ethically. I repeated it, way out of bounds ethically. And this is demonstrative of that. And it may be one of the first cases that we see in Canada regarding this kind of thing. So I did not encounter any specific problems with Dr. Wilson in the fall of 2023, except her erasing me and pretending that she doesn't know about my personal research and advocacy. It doesn't exist, all this kind of stuff. So she explained that this is typical and that I'm an expert in strategies such as these that are used to genocide First Nations students by erasure. Okay. So what's my comment here? Okay. Oh, I deleted something. So then the strategies such as these that are used to genocide First Nations, yes. So Miss Hickey added that there is only one other student in my cohort, and that student's research is literally it's on online youth movements against President Trump. This student gets all the support, including teaching positions, while Miss Hickey is erased. Mr. Gone asked about the 2025 January Planning and Research Project course. So the course that Dr. Wilson is teaching in 2025, they're misrepresenting what that is as well. In the other, they're very severe. That misrepresentation is very serious in the second fake investigation. So what this is a preparatory course for the thesis proposal, which is this current semester. What I'm supposed to be working on now is my formal research proposal. Not that course had many assignments. The last assignment is the draft thesis proposal, yes, but several assignments before that, like in that course is not focused. And we had to do a whole bunch of other work. And I had to submit a whole bunch of stuff that Simon Tremblay Pepin made up. And like, I mean, my hours are not worked on. This is not a course dedicated to the thesis proposal, although they've been trying to represent it as that. So Miss Hickey stated that the final assignment of more than 4 assignments for the course of Mr. Gone refers to is the first draft of this research proposal, and that Mr. Gone asked about Ms. Hickey's view that Dr. Wilson erased my research, and I stated the following. So I explained it, and you should have the documentation. If you don't, I can provide it. Where she erased, and I've shown that design spine where that eraser first started. As a result of my complaints, I was removed from her class, but that kind of erasure would have kept going. And they would have used these master students and weaponized students against me to continue that erasure through their feedback and so on it goes, okay? So Amanda Wilson literally erased the core of my research and rewrote it. This is typical. This is documented in the literature. This has happened to many Indigenous PhD students. Not only that, but typically someone with my experience, again, I refer you to my CV, which I sent to everybody involved in this. Typically, someone with my experience is usually not expected to go through this kind of coursework, which alleviates all those problems with the differences in experience between me and master students and also the other student in my cohort. They are given a more of an expedited track. But of course, that didn't happen in my case. And I have seen a lot of discrimination with that as well. For example, they'll give someone they support for whatever reasons an expedited track, but the Indigenous person who has arguably more merit doesn't receive the same expedited track. I've seen all kinds of things, all kinds of violence like this. It's what makes me an expert. So I wasn't surprised when I was expected to go through this, but the coursework. But in Dr. Wilson's class, she was going to have a master's student also evaluating our work, and they don't have any experience. They don't even have a master's yet. Some of them might not have any research experience whatsoever that they could put on their CVs. That could very possibly be true. And they do. If they do have any research experience, it is very limited, likely. So it's like, oh my God, I don't mind getting their comments and explaining things to them, but this is not an equal environment. They are being taught how to erase us by asking colonial questions like, what is the relevance of your work to me? Okay, these are not First Nations. The response to that question is it doesn't matter if Indigenous research is relevant to you. It only matters if Indigenous research is relevant to Indigenous communities. See my decolonization framework based on Smith and others. So there are the problems that we face, and these are the problems we face, and this is what's going on in Dr. Wilson's class. And they, the department, has many strategies set up that will allow them to rewrite my research until it is no longer Indigenous and until it better suits the academic industrial complex. And the Indigenous student has to tolerate that or withdraw, complain of racism using fake processes such as this one that I have no confidence in, or they do not survive the dehumanization after everything they went through to get a PhD, to get to the PhD level or grad level, which is genocide. So they encounter the same colonial erasure, and a lot of them don't survive it by that point. It's genocide. So here, this is where they said, like, some of the things that I just said are included in this what they put here, but this is not accurate enough. Like these are very serious matters that I'm talking about here, and I really think that a more accurate transcription is appropriate. We are discussing genocide in First Nations in academia here, and due to the seriousness of the discussion, I think it is best to use a more accurate transcription of what I said rather than this paraphrased interpretation. So you can have a look at that your own self. Here's something I added. Mr. Gong said that he has to ask Ms. Hickey about a post referring to Dr. Mackey and that he is not going to ask her about every post. A huge binder of they were screenshotting all kinds of stuff that I put up there. Like stuff that's not even relevant to this, right? So it brings up, there's a lot of implications that I have all that. They just gave me that. And it's like evidence, like they're, Ms. Hickey addressed the topic of the large binder of documentation by stating that she has concerns about the contents of the binder and the entire process. Ms. Hickey stated that the complaint and the corresponding evidence was not served properly, that there has been no proper notice, and that much of the contents of the binder are in French. So I added that I have the right to understand the documentation affiliated with this case. We have a right to understand the allegations. They have to be precise allegations, not vague. And we have to be able to, we need an opportunity to properly defend ourselves against allegations. You know, there are laws in Canada and there are rights in Canada. Canadians have rights. And like these lawyers pretend they don't even know this stuff. It's amazing. So, I mean, I really think that that shows the incompetence of everyone involved, including Mr. Gone. So this is all this stuff is improper and an infringement on my rights. Mr. Gone responded by saying there's very little in the binder that is in French. That's incorrect. We're going to talk about that actually. I'll switch over to something. So Mr. Gone informed Ms. Hickey that if she needs something translated, they can get it done. Ms. Hickey stated that the administration expects her to put a lot of unpaid hours into this, which is also improper. And there are communications from the dean of the faculty, Christian Dion, who is replaced Aurélie Lacassagne. Those communications are in French. Those I had to end up, there's a whole bunch of them that I had to end up translating for myself for the other investigation. So I didn't ask Mr. Gone for that. Mr. Gone told me that the second investigation is not included in his mandate. So I didn't bother him with that. I translated them myself. But this is an example of all the work I've had to do. So those are in French. So I reiterated that all of this is improper. What I mean by that is improper process, disregard for my rights, and incompetence. So let's move over to this here. Oh, don't I have my thing up? Okay, so let me get my thing up here. Here it is. Okay, so here, the French bit. So here's an example, okay? So these are documents that I had to translate myself in order to defend myself against the other fake allegations, okay? So this is just a sample, and there's other stuff that's in French. Like what they were referring to was Dr. Barrett's complaint, which is in French, okay? And so I like put that aside, and all the rest of the stuff that's in French, just this from that involves the interim dean, okay? 6 pages in French, 4 pages in French, 4 pages in French, 11 pages in French, 1 page in French, and 3 pages. Okay, so the total here was 29 pages. That's just to show you that Mr. Gon's statements, it shows that I don't think Mr. Gon actually read the evidence that's in that big fat honkin' binder. So that's more negligence, incompetence, not doing your duty. Okay, so this occurred later after the discussion about Dr. Mackey's concerns about a particular post. So I really think that are better, like it's out of context if it's not chronological. This one is a misrepresentation. Mr. Gon said that he could have anything translated, and that's good to know. This happened later after the discussion with respect to Dr. Lacassan that follows this. Okay, so let's talk about this here. So I was asked about a post that I made about waiting in the hallways for Dr. Mackey, and the post states, interests and hobbies, hanging out in the halls of SPU, hoping to run into Dr. Chris Mackey when they get back to ask them how the genocidery is going. Okay. Mr. Gone stated that he thinks that Dr. Mackey felt that this post was threatening. And my response, okay, is not so what they originally put here. Miss Hickey replied, and then they put this down here. Okay. What I actually said was, well, if they think that asking them how the genocidery is going is threatening, I think that's kind of silly. So what I'm saying here is that if Dr. Mackey thinks that asking them a question is threatening, I think that's really silly. We can't ask them questions. So here's my comments. The internet meme being referred to suggests a scenario in which I asked Dr. Mackey a question. The question in the meme is, how is the genocidery going? The sentence misrepresents the sentence here. Misrepresents what happened, and it misrepresents what I said. I did not ask Dr. Mackey the question. This is a meme, okay? I have not spoken to Dr. Mackey since December of 2024. It is my view that it is silly for a professor to act as if their safety is threatened because a student said they're going to ask them a question. If the professors are threatened by students asking them questions regarding matters of ethics, racism, accountability, then they are not qualified to teach. If professors do not understand these long-standing and well-documented issues of systemic racism and genocide against First Nations in academia, and they are not prepared to respond to complaints on this basis, then they are not qualified to teach Indigenous students or Indigenous content or be an administrator in a faculty or a department that does teach that content. With respect to Dr. Lacassan, Ms. Hickey intends to protest at public events. So they were talking about lectures. I changed this to better reflect what I actually said, which is my intention to protest at public events presided over by this administrator. Okay, she was the dean. She's currently rectrice at Université de Hearst. Okay, and she's an administrator. They should understand that this is so yeah. So yeah, like I mean, I'm explaining that like I mean, this stuff this whole character I play online, like that's not who I am. Okay, that's not who I was born to be. This is what I have to do because someone has to do something and someone has to do something different. Okay? I'm smart. I have different methods that I came up with my own self, and this is what's going down in the town on the bat channels. Okay, that's okay. It's not like I want to do this. Okay, it's not like this was my dream ever since I'm a girl growing up. Okay, this stuff is what I've developed in response to genocide, a genocidal war on First Nations who are dying left, right, and center. It's only gotten worse. Someone has to do something. So I said I'll protest if she's acting cool, which is something I often say in my online persona methods strategies. No one asked Miss Hickey to clarify this. The protest is of a person who tried to sabotage my research, ruin my academic reputation, and genocide me, presenting themselves as if they were an ally of the Anishinaabe and an ethical university administrator who can get away with such despicable actions with impunity. So I'm going to protest that. Misaki believes that she left to avoid being the dean, not because she didn't want to be the dean, because to avoid it. And if I find out that Dr. Lakazan is presiding over a public event, I'll be outside without causing any disturbances to the event itself, which is my method of peaceful protest, and I'm known for doing that. And as a matter of fact, I'll be doing that for the rest of Orly Lakazan's life. So it's not just her career at SPU. Mr. Gon asked Ms. Hickey if she to talk about her concerns about Dr. Simon Tremblay-Pepin. So I stated that he's in a conflict. It's unethical, incompetent, unprofessional. It's poor management on behalf of the administration. Mr. Gon asked if I was angry in the meeting with Dr. Simon Tremblay-Pepin. So what I said is that I'm very offended. Okay. So I'm offended in the meeting with Simon Tremblay-Pepin, and I'm still offended. And the offense that I take continues into this interview with Dr. Gon. Okay. So Dr. Gon replied, "Oh, okay. Well, calm, measured, but firm." To which I stated, "I am very offended. It is a genocide. They are killing us." I repeated it. They are killing us. They are erasing all of the work that everyone has ever done before me, as if it never happened. And they think they can get away with that with no accountability, which is not real. I often point out the difference between real and fake. And if you have seen from my posts on social media, it is real. They are accountable. Okay. They're like, I mean, no matter what happens here. So that is regardless of what goes on here. Whether I'm kicked out of this school or not, there are accountabilities. It is not real to pretend that you are not accountable for this kind of racism and genocide. That's not real. And they need to know that. The Ottawa community needs to know that. The academic elite needs to know that. The pretendians and the fake Métis need to know that. And that's what I said. Kelly stated that an 85 is an A grade and asked me. So after this is like pretty much Dr. Gon or Mr. Gon has finished his questions, and then Kelly, the mysterious enigma, starts asking questions. Okay, so Kelly stated that 85 is an A, and she asked me if I got all A's in the first part of my coursework, and so I replied by describing my grades over all of my degrees. Okay, so this is what I said. I struggled in my undergrad due to alcoholism, which is a standard experience, meaning addiction, for someone who has gone through the things that I have in my life. I refer you to what they did to me in the 90s, which I described earlier. I got sober, and that's not it. Okay, they tortured me. I was tortured as a child, and so was my sister. So I got sober in 2011, and I started my grad career in 2015. That's when I learned a lot about what is going on in terms of policy at the universities, and I saw the evolution of that. I know how we got here. I am very uniquely positioned in this whole thing. I have been extremely successful since I've been sober. So I'll remind everyone here that 2015 is when JT started his first majority mandate. Okay. And that's when these PhDs learned what they'll have to do to keep their fake jobs. That's when a whole whack of PhDs jump ship. The humane one, like the ones that have any regard for humanity whatsoever, and kudos to them. Shout out to them. Anyway, I'm very uniquely positioned in all of this. Kelly asked Ms. Hickey how many grades she received that were below an A. I clarified that they were all 85%. So in Amanda Wilson's, you know what? And what I said here, okay, so I then stated, my position is that they conspired together to find ways to devalue my work to 85% on every assignment in the final semester. Kelly asked if all the marks were 85, and I clarified that that's what I believe. However, there could be minor discrepancies here and there. And I didn't check, but I want to say that like Amanda Wilson gave me like an 83 on the first presentation I did or something. So, I mean, these are minor discrepancies. So, but I know they're going to try to use that as like some kind of evidence to genocide me out of the university and out of the world. Okay, till I'm dead. Okay, so Kelly asked me to comment on the February 10th meeting with Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson expected us to meet in the atelier, and I asked for a more appropriate space. And I was advised that it would be in the professor's office. So it doesn't show what I do, it doesn't exactly show what I deleted, but in the other version it does, the one I sent to, so other students were present, okay? Um, and they can see into these enclosed spaces and they can hear what's going on. So students and staff. Kelly asked if there were other students present on February 10th, and I confirmed that there were indeed several students present, including the students from my class that just ended, as well as other students who are regularly present on Mondays. I think that some of them may be required to be there on Mondays during our class by Amanda Wilson. So given the topics, so the reason I asked for a more appropriate space, like this wasn't included here, but because what we were going to be discussing is racism, genocide, and erasure. Okay, so those are very serious things, and I don't think that I want others to be overhearing that, especially when we're talking about the way I'm being dehumanized. I don't particularly enjoy being dehumanized in front of an entire room of other people. Funny. So Dr. Wilson claims to be trained in Indigenous research and qualified to teach PhD students. As such, she has a duty to ethically engage with Indigenous students. So I stated that Dr. Wilson's summary at the meeting mischaracterizes it. My concerns were dismissed at the meeting without any reasoning, and she terminated the meeting because she has no answers to my questions other than gaslighting. Questions like, why are you erasing my entire career of research? Why are you acting like my references have to be Canadian and within the 10 and 15 years when I literally got into this program based on a research proposal on ontology of reality construction? Okay, it's ridiculous. There's so many other questions that I asked, and none of these, they can't answer any of these questions. And if they do, it's gaslighting, and it's very difficult. So it's a very uncomfortable position for them to be in. Kelly asked Ms. Hickey to clarify what she means by gaslighting, to which Ms. Hickey responded that Dr. Wilson has no real response to my questions and concerns, such as academic logic or reasoning, and that Dr. Wilson only has gaslighting with which to respond to these questions and concerns. I stated that such situation is very uncomfortable for someone like Dr. Wilson, and instead of proceeding with that very uncomfortable situation, Dr. Wilson terminated the meeting. That's what happened, not whatever, like Amanda's misrepresentations of that. So this is an incorrect description of the manner in which I refer to academic reasoning and logic. The correction is above this. So Dr. Wilson pretended there was nothing real by way of academic reasoning or logic. That's not what I said. What I said is that they don't have any response to any of my questions that has any academic reasoning or logic to it. They have nothing but gaslighting. So that's quite different, that meaning, than what they wrote into these notes. This is a poor description of what I said. More accurate description is above that. More of the same thing. Mr. Gone apologized for emailing. Okay, so this is what happened. Mr. Gone apologized for emailing me on the weekend. After several correspondences, I had asked Dr. Gone to stop emailing me on the weekend prior to this interview, okay? So in response to those statements that Mr. Gone made, I said and I explained that it's not personal and that I have extensive experience with this kind of racism and genocide by erasure, and I know how lawyers are weaponized against Indigenous students as well as other staff and faculty. I added that I will not be intimidated by lawyers and that it's nothing personal. So Ms. Hickey reiterated that the complaints were improper and that I haven't been properly notified, served on and on. They're in French, yada, yada. So Ms. Hickey informed Dr. Gone that I have a question. So this was not included at all in that. So my question was not included in the notes. Ms. Hickey asked Mr. Gone to describe exactly what is the basis of these complaints. Mr. Gone stated, in essence, it's the Facebook posts that you made about 3 or 4 professors, and the fact that the professors feel, in their words, these are defamatory, but certainly a form of targeting them personally. So if they don't like people saying what they did on the social media, they probably shouldn't go ahead and do all of that racism and genocide. That's my view. Okay, if you don't want people to say what you did, don't do it. Right? Defamation is false statements of someone, not true statements of someone and their actions. So they feel it's a breach of the policy. So Ms. Hickey asked, on what basis? A breach of the policy on what basis, please? And that's in quotations. That's exactly what it said. So Mr. Goins responded, we will have to look at the policy and make that determination. That's not okay. That's not how you conduct a prudent investigation that's done properly. Uh, that's like more like an entrapment strategy. And that's, like people have a right to understand exactly what are the allegations against them. They have a right to see the evidence of the allegations, and they have a right to properly defend themselves against those allegations. And those allegations can't be made on behalf of others. Like Dr. Eaton and Dr. Barrett filed complaints against me on behalf of others to say that I harassed others. That's not how it works in Canada, chums. So it's really, really a lot of incompetence and all of this is improper. It's a fiasco. It's a farce. It's outrageous. So we will have to look at the policy and make that determination, to which I replied, okay, I'm just pointing out that you cannot answer the question. Kelly pipes in, from her recollection, there is a section of the policy on defamation, etc. I have it written down here somewhere, but I would have to go through it and find it. But we do know what the policy is because I think it was explained to us by Dr. Barrett. Okay. So they're just going to go ahead and Dr. Barrett says, this is what she's guilty of, and they're just going to stamp it. Okay. That's their role. And it's not an actual investigation. It's not real. It's fake. There are two, and by the way, Dr. Barrett is complaining on behalf of others and not even himself. So, like, you can't, like, I have a right, like in Canada, we have a right to face our accusers directly, not indirectly. Okay. So, I can't even believe these people call themselves lawyers. You see what I'm saying about lawyers? Dr. Gon stated there are two complaints, but really it is one. There's a problem with that, friends. On February 21st complaint, which is in the binder at tab B, it is somewhat chronological, says, given the information provided by the members and looking at the concerns, the Facebook, Twitter comments, we have reasonable grounds to state that the actions of Dana Hickey amount to harassment as defined by the regulation, which is not clarified, and in the Ontario Occupational Health Act. We agree with you that, so he says, I agree with you that that doesn't really explain the nature of the breach. Wow, good job, Dr. Gone. Dr. Barrett said in French that it is psychological harassment and breach of 5.5. With 21 publications in 4 days on Facebook with respect to Amanda Wilson, he didn't reference the other professors. He said this meets the definition of psychological harassment. So that is the basis of the complaint. And I would suggest that even though it is not articulated in the union letter, so even though it's not articulated in the union letter by Dr. Eaton, who's on the executive, I would suggest that it's the same basis. Well, that's not good enough, friends. Okay, that's not like you can't ruin people's lives based on these suggestions. That's not how it works. People have rights in Canada. So, okay, well, I just have you know that it is my position that Dr. Barrett's improper complaint was not included. It is not proper because it wasn't included in the original complaint that was sent to me on the 24th, okay, of February 2025. Also, it is in French. I didn't get the translation on that until today. We're going to have a look at that. Let's have a look. That's here. This is the original email from Dr. Gone, or excuse me, Mr. Gone, introducing himself. Okay, so it's on April 16. So that's when I first heard, right down here, an associated harassment complaint from Dr. Barrett against you. Okay, that's the first time I even heard of a complaint by Dr. Barrett, who's involved in intimidation, who was brought into that class on February 24th to intimidate me and never responded to my email about the official reason why he was in that class. Okay, and so then Dr. Barrett, I brought this harassment, and it's not even like the complaint is not that I harassed Dr. Barrett, it's that I harassed others, and like I told you, that's not proper. So down here, this is when I got the binder. Okay, so it was from an admin, Julie Louie. And what I'm saying here is that 8:30 tomorrow was better for me. So I picked up this binder on April 29th. And that's when I first had access to this complaint by Dr. Barrett, which is in French and improper on many bases, and the whole thing is improper. Back to this. Okay, Dr. Gon stated, if you want to submit anything to me in terms of your position with respect to psychological harassment and how the Facebook posts do not constitute such psychological harassment, please do that. But that complaint was disclosed to you when I started over and I started from zero. Okay, so I just showed you the time. What I'm saying is that, see, they're adding complaints and they're still not properly notifying me. They're not translating the information. The complaints are on behalf of others. They're vague. They're not specified. So I can't. So I don't have access to the specific allegations against me, and they're in a language that I don't understand, and that makes it impossible for me to properly defend myself. All of those things are not okay in Canada. I restated, I did not receive proper notice or proper service, and it's in French. There are many other bases upon which these complaints are improper, just so you know. And he should know. He's a lawyer. Unacceptable. So Mr. Gon stated, well, if you need more time to respond after you get a translation of this letter, I'm happy to give that to you. I replied, no, thank you. These complaints are clearly improper on many bases. Mr. Gon replied, okay, so you don't require a translation of the complaint. I replied, it is much too late. I got a translation of Dr. Barrett's improper complaint just now. Kelly asked, yeah, you mentioned that. You got a translation of what Steve just read? And I replied, the translation that I received is in what Dr. Gonj, or excuse me, Mr. Gon just said. Instead of what I should have been proper, instead of like when I should have been properly notified and served and given this documentation, and all of this is improper. So Mr. Gon stated, just to be clear, this is amazing. Check this out. What a way to end. When I do a lot of these types of investigations, or certainly harassment investigations and other types of purported misconduct, the complaints are often general and they do not make arguments per se. In other words, they won't delineate how you might have breached the policy. Ultimately, when I said I'm going to look at the policy, that is what I do when I do my analysis and conclusions. That's improper, sir. I look at the policy, I determine what happened as best as I can on evidentiary basis, and then I say, did what happen meet the definition of the policy, whether it is psychological harassment or any other type. So they don't show you the bases so that you could defend yourself. They determine those after, okay? And that's like some kind of entrapment strategy. Anyway, it's not legal. So I responded, in my view, that is only demonstrative of how far academia has gone into unethical bounds. I can't even believe they think they can just, I can't even believe this. They just say it. They straight out say it. It's amazing. I have this, this is all documented. So Dr. Goen replied, fair enough. I don't have anything further for you. I appreciate you taking the time today. So I'm going to stop the share. That's really it for this video. I'm just showing the evidence of all this improper process and these outrageous events that are going on that I continue to defend myself against. And thank you for watching. That's all. Bye.